Hey guys, there's a lot to talk about in the Panama City Beach condo market and the splash market specifically. I'm Craig Duran, of course, over with the Duran Group at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices. This will be a little longer update than normal. I want to get really into a couple things that are happening in the market. There's a lot that's moved very quickly. So for those of you who haven't seen our real estate updates as it relates to the coronavirus, what you're looking at here is a chart from a company called ShowingTime. ShowingTime is a company that real estate agents and brokers use to schedule showing appointments. This is a good way to track who's actually going out and looking at real estate, or the volume of people looking at real estate. So the idea being, if we're trying to understand the real estate market or understand the health of the real estate market, obviously we look at the number of sold properties and we can look at sold pricing. But to understand where a market might be headed, that's always about 30 or 45 or 60 days later than what's actually happening in the market. Remember, obviously, to have a closing, you have to have a contract. The contract more than likely is coming 30-ish days before the actual closing. Well, what has to happen before you have a closing? A contract. You have to get out and look at people. Buyers have to get out and actually look and decide on what they're going to make an offer on. So we knew early on in the pandemic, I wanted to start tracking showing activity. How many people are getting out and looking? We knew very quickly it was going to tank. I think we bottomed out at something like an 80%, 85% fewer people looking at real estate compared to the same time as the previous year. But very quickly, surprisingly quickly, or surprisingly when it happened, real estate's come back very strong, and we're right on just about even with showing activity from last year. So the next step to understand the market through the coronavirus pandemic is just how many new contracts are being written. Okay, we see people are getting out and looking at real estate again, but do they feel confident enough in the market? Do they feel confident enough in their personal financial situation to make offers? So here's the condo market compared to 2019. We knew early on we were going to be off. 50% off, down to 72% off, down to 79% off at the bottom. And that's the red line over here. We bottomed out about 79% fewer contracts written in a given week compared to the year before. But look at what's happened since more people got out and started looking at real estate. We improved. We improved almost week over week, 75% fewer, 58, 46, 10, 9. And now we're actually into the positive last week for the first time. We wrote 2% more new contracts on condos than we did the previous year, which is pretty surprising. Probably a little bit of pent-up demand. All these people that maybe wanted to buy a condo but didn't and were waiting, we're really feeling the effects of that now. Part of this, of course, in the condo market, when you see the residential market sort of recovered a little earlier, the condo market is really affected, of course, by the vacation rental ban that has been in place. So many buyers for condos are coming from other places. And so if they couldn't come here, or it was difficult to come here, they weren't coming, so you couldn't get out and see units. The market right now is very, very good. It's almost frenzied feeling. We normally get a little emotional uptick in buyers at the beginning of the summer. You know, it's beach season, things are warming up. Hey, it's time to buy a condo, and I think that's amplified a little bit by having been stuck in place for 60 days and not been able to get out. Now that feeling is just almost exaggerated. Good thing for the condo market, I think, at least for sales. So if you look at the overall condo market, I'm just comparing the newer buildings here with Splash. I only want to compare newer projects. Anything built since 2006 is new. The older market is not acting the same right now. So again, remember, I haven't done this chart in a while, but remember the red line represents the number of units for sale at any given time. The black line represents the number of closings. So remember, back in late 2018, we were in a scorching hot condo market, very, very hot market. Prices were appreciating quickly. Units were selling fast, multiple offers, all of those things that you normally hear in a hot market. We started to slow down as we add units for sale and we don't keep pace with sales, we're adding a little supply month over month, just a little supply, a little bit at a time. Real estate generally moves pretty slow compared to stocks and things like that. And this is a perfect example right here. We were adding a few units. We're cooling down, but again, we're cooling down from a scorching hot market. So if you look at this months of inventory number that you guys know I love, remember 5 or 6 months of inventory is neutral. Anything less than 5 or 6 months of inventory means all the things we just talked about: hot market, units selling quickly, all those kind of things. So we were in a scorching hot market under 2 months back in 2018. We cooled and we cooled and we cooled, but little by little, we really just barely touched on a neutral market in February, March of this year. But again, remember, that's a market that's slowing down very, very, very slowly, but it's slowing. The last couple months, factoring in coronavirus, we jumped to a pretty dramatic buyer's market, very, very sluggish, more units for sale than buyers that are buying. I really expect in June that number will see some recovery. There are a lot of contracts being written right now. A lot of people in the last couple of weeks getting out and looking at condos or trying to look at condos. A lot of them are rented, so we have that problem too. But I expect some recovery here. But what will be really interesting to watch over the next couple of months is, as we recover and get to some semblance of normal in the real estate market, is do we get back to neutral? Or are we going to have so many people rush out and buy condos and absorb this supply and get back to seller market territory or really hot market? I sort of suspect, based off of trends of what's happening, not factoring in coronavirus, that we're on this trend very generally in the condo market of slowing down. And I don't see anything that's causing the trajectory to go any other way. So after a month or two of a pause from coronavirus, I think it's real possible that we recover, but we're going to recover maybe about to neutral, maybe even a little sluggish than that. It'll be interesting to see. To look at Splash specifically, remember, anytime you're comparing one building, it's difficult because the data bounces around a lot. But, Splash has done okay. Splash has bounced around, a little worse than neutral market territory to very hot the last little while. In February, it was a good market. March was a good market. We had a number of sales and not a lot come to the market. Of course, adding 5 units for sale over the last couple months with only one sale slows the market down again. We didn't have any sales in May, one sale in April. So a pretty sluggish market from that standpoint. But I expect that to change a little. As the repairs are being completed over there, and vacation rental ban is lifted, I think there's generally more activity. I've seen more showings on a listing that we have over there in the last 10 days than we did probably the previous month. So I think that's encouraging. A couple things to think about. And I say this about this time every year. This is specifically for people who are thinking about making a move in their portfolio. If they're thinking about selling in 2020, it's very common mindset to sell at the end of rental season. Hey, I'm renting my condo out. I want to make all the money. I know I'm going to make max my revenue, sell right after Labor Day. It's a very common mindset. So what we see a lot will be a little bit of a rush of supply or more units come up for sale right after Labor Day. There's a lot of people that think the same way. Now think about what we just went through. It takes about 30 days generally to close a contract. It takes a little bit of time for people to get out and see what's for sale. So knowing all of that, coming to the market late June, early July is not a bad thing. The market right now, especially, and this is probably even more important in 2020 than normal, the market right now is a little bit frenzied. People are wanting to get out and do things. People have been thinking about buying a beach place. Now it's like this can put them over the edge of, yes, I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm going to do this. There's not a ton of inventory. Although the market's a little sluggish right now, it has more to do, I think, with the lack of demand. The supply is not dramatically different than it was 3 months ago. So you kind of have this perfect storm of people really wanting to buy and get out and do things. If you bring something up for sale, maybe if it's a rental for you, maybe not right in early June, but end of June, early July, even if you got a contract on day one, if you did, that means you got a great price. You're happy with the price. It's a strong offer. it's still probably a 30-day closing-ish or so, which means you're still getting all that revenue in July and maybe takes you into August. And think about it, if it takes a week or two to get a contract, which is a little more likely, then all those things push back. Now you're closing middle of August. If it takes a month to get a contract, which wouldn't be unusual in that time because it's so hard to see units, then now you're already into revenue, into September of a closing. So think about that from timing of liquidating. It's a little important to get in there a little earlier than what your natural instincts are. You can maximize and do a little bit better. September and October are very good months for condo sales. Generally, there's some pent-up demand from a buyer who really wanted to buy in the summer, but they just couldn't get out and see everything they wanted to see because units were so rented. Get a little ahead of that, or my advice would be get a little ahead of it. Don't wait until September to start making phone calls to real estate agents, and then another couple weeks to make the decision. And then it takes, a good agent is building websites and getting professional photography and all those things. And that doesn't come overnight. It could take a week to get something up and going, really the marketing going. So if you start that process in September, you could be end of September before you're releasing it to the market. If you start that process late June, early July, your timing can be better if you're thinking about selling this year. And the things to think about, I think, with the market in 2020 is what the third and fourth quarter potentially could look like from a big picture. Economically, we're going to get some news probably about how bad the second quarter was. I think we all know that the numbers are going to be bad, but when Wall Street starts to tangibly see this stuff in writing, does that affect them somewhat? So far, it doesn't seem like it has, but some of these numbers coming in have got to be a little dramatic. If you're worried about, potential coronavirus flare-ups, volatility around a presidential election, any of those things that can put people in a place that they want to wait to make a major purchase. You got a few of those things that could potentially happen later this year. So those are the kinds of things that slow down real estate markets, keep people from buying their extra property, their beach place. So if we have this trend that's happened the last couple of years of more and more units coming for sale, if we don't quite absorb that, and then some of those things, one or all of those things happen economically, we could be in a different real estate market. We could be in a market now finally that tips from neutral over into buyer market territory. If that happens and you stay there too long, that's when you start to see pricing pressure where prices have to come down some. I don't think the experts see any crash in real estate looming. I've seen too many reports that there's too much equity in real estate across the country. So we don't see a condo market crashing at any point. But if it gets sluggish and you have any kind of natural pullback, you're talking about 3, 4, 5%, 5, 6, 7% on paper. It's just costing you money. If what you've got is a long-term hold for you and something you're enjoying, you can weather that. It comes down, it comes up a few years later. That's fine. If it is something you're thinking about selling sooner rather than later, then this could be a pretty critical year to be maximizing. Depending on what you think how those things could go later in the year. I know none of us have a crystal ball, but I just try to look and interpret the data as much as I can. So I hope that helps. It gives you some sense of what's going on. I know that's 14 minutes of a lot of stuff. If you have any questions, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, give me a call, hit pause, rewind, and watch it again. I know it's a lot to take in, but there's a lot going on in the market, so I wanted to get you guys some information. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe. We'll be in touch next month.